Welcome to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? We are on episode 14. What? I'm so excited. I know it's a slow crawl, but 14 feels like it has impact for sure. For my co-host Celeste Geary, and I am Amy G, and our guest, as you can see on our screen, we go way back. We didn't know that we went way back, but we go way back because we went to the same college, UC Davis,
Yeah.
go Ags. But we went to kind of rival high schools, kind of a little bit.
We did.
We did, yes. All right. So who is she?
Petaluma wasn't too far away.
No, it wasn't too far away at all. Her name is Heather Hunter, and she now is the Senior Associate Athletics Director / Senior Woman Administrator for UC Davis. She's come full circle back to where it all began in Davis, and we need to welcome her because she's a doctor. She's a Dr. Celeste.
Doctor in the house.
In the house. Dr. Heather Hunter. My old pal from Sonoma County. How you doing?
I'm doing well today. How are you
Yay.
and Celeste doing? Good?
Well, we're excited that we get you. It's always fun when you know someone, you have a past with them a little bit. So I make that sound all like mysterious.
I know. Are there any stories here?
There
What's
might
going
be.
on?
There might be.
I like it.
I'm sure Heather heard a few things about me along the way.
Some long nights at the SAP Open.
We had some long nights. Yes, we're going to get into that for sure. I just told the story about leaving the SAP Open to have my child. So we'll get to that one as well.
I was there.
You sure were.
All right. Before we get to Heather's,
game time.
Game face on. Before we get to Heather's impressive career in sports, we got to play a game. Heather, you down?
I'm down.
All right. Today's Girl Gig Quick Pick is going to be a little mix of Sonoma County and UC Davis trivia.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
What movie was not filmed in Sonoma County? Peggy Sue Got Married, Cujo, The Birds, or Basic Instinct?
I'm going to go with Cujo.
Trick question!
Trick question!
Amy did this. Trick question.
I did. I realized that was really mean. I just thought you might know. Cujo was filmed in Petaluma.
Oh, it was?
Were filmed.
That rabid dog. Yes. It scared the heck out of me. And then I was like, this is where we're from. Are they here? Are the Cujos around? Yeah. No, they were all filmed partly in Petaluma, Sonoma County. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was totally unfair and kind of mean, but I know you and love you, so I figured you could handle it. All right. What was the city of Davis the first city to create? I have choices for you.
Yeah.
Okay. The overpass, an arboretum, bike lanes, or dry farming?
I would go bike lanes.
Good girl.
Ooh.
Yeah. You redeemed yourself. You redeemed yourself off the movie one.
Nice.
So quick little tidbit. I loved this. It's the bike capital of the world, as I think we knew that going there. 98% of the streets in Davis are bike friendly. 98%.
That's amazing.
Nice.
I did not ride my bike when I was an undergrad because I was afraid I was going to crash.
Well, you had good reason. Oh, the crashes were bad.
Yes.
They were bad. Yeah.
Okay. The city of Rohnert Park is named after the Rohnert family. Rohnert family. Okay, get it right. What business did they own? A vegetable farm, a vineyard, a dairy, or a seed farm?
Oh, wow. I'm going to go with a dairy farm.
Ooh,
I thought you might. That's why I threw it in there. It's a seed farm.
Oh, that was my second choice.
Petaluma's dairy. We got them all. Okay, last one. UC Davis is the largest campus geographically of all the UCs, but it began as a small farm school for what UC college?
For UC Berkeley, Cal.
There you go, girl.
It's the Cal Aggie Alumni Association.
Heather, your knowledge is way better on Davis than your hometown of Rohnert
I know,
Park.
that's pretty bad.
I know. Your mom's not going to be happy. You did good. Those were hard.
Yeah. They were hard.
Yeah.
Well, we like to educate our audience at the same time. So I learned some stuff about UC Davis. I didn't know that about the bikes. That's great.
Lots of bikes.
Okay, let's
talk. You asked me what Rohnert Park's tagline was, and I would have known the friendly city.
The friendly city.
Oh, we should
Look
have
who
asked you that.
how do we not know that with Heather on? She's so friendly.
She is friendly.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of friendly, let's talk about your current position at UC Davis. Your title, officially, it's a big one.
It is.
Long one.
Senior Associate Athletics Director and Senior Woman Administrator. What is it and what do you do, Heather?
Yeah, so I moved into this role probably just over a year ago. And in this role, currently I oversee our broadcast team, which is ESPN Plus as part of the Big West contract, our student athlete advising team, and then also our facility events and operations. And then with the Senior Women Administrator designation, oversee gender equity, Title IX, work on a campus committee with our Chief Compliance Officer. And I also led strategic planning for the athletic department. And after I was here for a bit, they decided to give me some sports. So the sports that I oversee are men's basketball, equestrian, which is very UC Davis, and then also indoor volleyball. And then I have some other things that you just kind of get thrown my way.
Yeah,
But I
right.
just kind of, yep.
Because you don't have enough to do.
Athletics for you.
No, because she's good at what she does. So then they're like, she could probably
Right.
handle this too.
Yeah.
She could,
Let's give her
give it to
1,000.
Heather. Give it to
Right.
Heather.
And then since I mentioned Big West, also
Yeah.
do conference governance. So the athletic director and senior women administrator are involved with conference governance. So work with the Big Sky Conference and also the Big West Conference.
Wow.
Wow.
How big is your team? Like your team that you work with, not the sports teams, but like the athletic director team.
So we have an executive management team and a senior management team.
Mm-hmm.
So I work, closely with them. Are you talking about like my broadcast team or?
No, just like how many people are you overseeing? How many people do you have
Like,
to
it's like
delegate
30.
to?
It's
30.
about 25, 30, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that just sounds like a lot going on and you were going to need some help. So I was going to make sure you got more people in case you didn't have enough. All right. So as we mentioned, Heather and we grew up just down the road from each other. We're about probably 15 minutes away from each other, Petaluma and Rohnert Park. And Heather was an exceptional athlete. So let's go back though to little itty bitty Heather and when your love of sports began. What do you recall about it?
So I recall my love of sports coming just being, when we grew up, right, we got to play outside. We were not
Yep.
inside.
Nope.
So the boys used to come down and knock on my door, not ask for my older brother, but used to ask for me to go out.
Mm-mm.
And I remember I think I was probably maybe about 6 or 7, my brother got put into Pop Warner football. So I used to go on the sidelines and basically practice with what they were doing on the field. And I fell in love with the sport of football. And I was lucky enough. I said, "Hey, Mom, I want to play football. What do you think?" And she's like, "Let me put you in a year of soccer. And if you still want to do it, I'll let you play football."
What a cool mama.
Very cool mama, cool parents, had very supportive parents. But I did that. And then I also played Little League baseball with the boys. Fast pitch softball, I actually didn't start playing until my freshman year in high school. And then also played basketball, which is a sport I love, but I wasn't fast enough or tall enough.
Can we just give a quick shout out to the brothers? I have an older brother. Celeste has brothers. You have a brother.
Yeah.
If it was not for my brother, I probably wouldn't have played sports. I was the exact same, Heather, in looking at him and wanting to emulate what he did. And I'll never forget, as a freshman trying out for high school basketball, I'd never played basketball, but I watched him play his whole life because we didn't have basketball offered to girls then. That's how old we are. And he took me out and I just tried to be like him. And that's how I had the look. I wasn't very good, but I had the look, and then you grow into it, but shout out to the brothers. I love
Yeah,
that.
my brother was, he definitely got me tough. I will say that.
Oh yeah, mine too. We won't get into that. How?
And you learn a lot of trash talking from the brothers too, I think. At least I did.
Survival tactics.
Survival tactics is a good description, I
How
think.
to find a pocket of air for.
Yeah, I would just say that, my love of sports is also because of where I grew up. Rohnert Park was such a community that, everybody kind of knew each other. So it was fun, right? It was fun to play on the Little League team. It was fun to play on the CYO basketball team.
It's
And you played
great place.
Yeah, you played football in high school.
Yeah.
You were the first girl to actually do it.
At Rancho Cotati, yeah.
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 You know, what position and what was that experience like for you?
So I was a starting right pulling guard, which was amazing. I'm not that big. I know that I'm sitting down here.
She's itty bitty compared to us, Celeste.
Yeah,
I'm like
Yeah.
5'4". I'm not, yeah.
Mhm.
So the experience actually, I mean, it was great. I mean, I was lucky, right? I started playing Pop Warner football when I was 8 years old. So all the guys that I played with, I had been playing since I was 8 years old. So to actually make that leap into high school, they knew I was there to play.
Yep.
They knew that I was passionate about the sport. And that also helped with the coaches. Also helped that my brother, I mean, we talked about my brother. My brother was playing high school football. So when I was about to go into high school, I actually went and worked out with the football team my summer of my 8th grade year. Started lifting weights, which actually helped me later on with my softball career at Davis. But it was an amazing experience. I loved it, but I did learn right at that point, guys got bigger my freshman year. And if I was going to stay in the sport of football, that I needed to be quicker or bigger. And unfortunately, I wasn't either.
So you actually are in the school's Hall of Fame because of your being the first to do this. We had a girl in my class freshman year, Danny Franzi, who played football. Do you know
Met her
Danny?
too. She was my rival.
Yeah. So, and she held her confidence so well that we didn't even really think about any lashback she would have gotten, or an unsupportive family, or whatever it is when you're trying to trailblaze, which is what you did. Being in the school's Hall of Fame obviously means they were very accepting, and that makes a lot of sense because you'd played with these guys for so long that they accepted you. But did you have anyone question why you wanted to do this?
I mean, not so much in high school, but I will say when I first started playing, my parents got a lot of flack, right? How are you letting your girl play? This is a boys' sport. And my parents, if I didn't have my parents, right, I probably would not have been able to play. I mean, I actually have a letter hanging on my wall in my office. That is a letter in which I went to an offense defense camp. Sonoma State used to have an offense defense camp with all of the professional NFL players. So like, the Ronnie Lotts, the 24 sets. But in order for me to attend that with one of my childhood best friends, they had to basically sign away that their insurance would not cover girls. So if I got hurt at the camp, that was on my parents. So I was just the type of person, right, that I wanted to do it. I wasn't doing it to make a statement. I was doing it because I love the sport.
Yeah.
So I just kept my head down, and all I kept thinking was, if I want to play, I just need to work harder, right? I need to get better if I want to get on the field. And for me, that happened the second year of Pop Warner. I had a coach that actually still a friend, family friend, that basically was like, hey, if she's good enough, I'll put her on the field. And I was able to start playing. And after that, like, I was able to get playing time and then eventually start on my high school freshman football team.
That's
what did you love
amazing.
so much about football? What was it about it?
I think it's the greatest team sport, to be honest. Like, you have to have every single, right, your offense, defense, special teams, everything has to be in unison for a football team to win. And I mean, it's a lot of conditioning, right? You're all in pads. It's hard work. And you're not out there unless you love it, because who wants to get hit?
Oh,
you did.
You did. It is. I struggle because Paul, my husband, who Heather's met, he covers football. It's part of our livelihood. And I grew up a huge football fan, right? Like that's what we did in the 80s. You watched football. And as I'm older and had a son that played, my idea of it has changed a little bit in just how brutal it can be, the injuries and the CTE and all of that. We have so much more information today than we ever had when we were younger. But you're so right. Like every single part has to work together for success. And that's like kind of a template you can take into any business or any podcast or whatever, you can use that your whole life. And it's interesting that you said that you just put your head down, because if I were just to describe you, I would I would say you're like this kind of quietly successful human being. Like you approach life so humble. It's like the first thing I remember about you was like she had this big wig job, Celeste, at the SAP Center is it SAP? What is it?
SAP
HP?
Center, yeah. It was
SAP
HP
Center,
Pavilion at
yeah,
the time,
HP
but
Pavilion. And she was just like cool as a cucumber, just running the show. I was like pregnant and getting ready to have my baby, and there comes Heather, and she'd be like, "How we doing? Do you have everything you need? Okay, I'm gonna go on, make sure everybody else is good." So I love that about you. Okay, so let's talk about Davis, because at some point you had this transition from baseball to softball, probably stopped playing football, maybe
yeah.
fill in the blanks there, and you decided to go to Davis. Was playing softball part of that decision, and what is the overall reasoning you decided to go to Davis?
Softball was a big part of the decision. So I knew once I played my freshman year in my first summer of travel ball that I wanted to play softball in college. So I happened to get a recruiting note, actually have it hanging in my office from my head coach, Kathy DeYoung. And so I went on a recruiting visit to Davis and went on to recruit. So I was also getting recruited by St. Mary's.
Ooh,
Cool. So I went to both. Davis felt more like home, right? It was big, but it felt small. But I also went to watch both softball teams, and I could just tell that Davis had something special, and that if I was to come here, that I would have really good teammates and we'd have a chance to win, which I love to win. So it was probably one of the best choices I've made in my life.
Me too. I feel that way. I totally agree with you about it. It reminded me so much of home, but I was away.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have to follow the rules of home. I got to be at Davis, but the town surrounding it is what makes it so special. I mean, it's a total college town. It's great. Yeah.
Did you hope you had a playing career once you were done with college, Heather?
There was no opportunities. So that actually happened the year after I graduated.
Okay.
But I was ready to kind of start my career. So, and I originally thought that coaching was it. And because of the relationship I had with my head coach, she allowed me to kind of come onto the coaching staff. So I did that for about 2 years, but then decided that recruiting wasn't it. I needed to be at a softball field in Stockton or Bakersfield like every weekend in the summer. So I decided to go back.
I don't
I know.
understand.
Why would
What's
you want to
wrong
be
with
there?
that?
Yeah. So I ended
Our
up going
next
back.
guest is from Stockton.
Oh,
I'm just
is it?
kidding.
Oh,
No,
don't do that.
I'm just kidding. I love messing with Heather.
So, but yeah, so I went back to get my master's in sports management from University of San Francisco, and I did an internship that actually turned into my first job at Cal, which was amazing.
So let's expand a little bit on that. So, you get into coaching after college. It's the same situation. Like, we've talked to so many women on this show already about how it's the landscape has changed for female athletes. Like it used to be, if you got to play in college, that was a big deal. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was all you had. Celeste played basketball at LSU. And then, I think probably when you were there, the WNBA was underway, but like, you had to be like elite. And now there's so many more opportunities to continue your playing career. Coaching made probably a ton of sense. So then how do you make that choice? You don't want to go to these places that they don't sound too appealing, but to go back to school. And then when did your mindset kind of start to change as to what you wanted to do with school and sports? Like how were you formulating that?
So lucky at UC Davis that we had a strong women leader in Pam Gilfisher, who was a longtime SWA here at Davis and former athlete. So when I was a student here, I was able to work in her compliance department. So I kind of had the idea that during that time that I either wanted to coach or be an athletic administrator. But I really thought coaching was it because I really enjoy mentoring people. But when I decided that wasn't it, I knew even in the first year that I needed to go get my master's because back then, right, to be in college athletics, you had to have your master's degree. It's changed quite a bit. So that's why I decided to go back to school. And then as soon as I decided coaching kind of wasn't it, went to Pam. I mean, my whole life, like my where I've gotten in the work world, right, is all about relationships that I've had, people who have helped me. That's why it's important for me to help others with their careers. So she actually put me in touch with a lady by the name of Chris Dawson, who was their longtime SWA and later worked at the Pac-10. And she happened to kick my resume down to a new director of marketing who hired me for free. Back then, they didn't have to pay in California. So I worked for free, working over 40 hours a week, right, doing football events and doing basically marketing for women's basketball. And I was lucky that it turned into my first full-time job.
That was at Cal.
That was at Cal.
And then will you just explain SWA in case people are
senior
listening?
women administrator. So it's a designation by the NCAA to make sure, because right back when there was not a lot of representation of females in the athletic departments. So they came up with this designation to make sure that there was a woman voice who was at the leadership table.
I go back to that. It's in my head, Celeste, what she's saying about the Sonoma State camp and that they wouldn't insure her, and that now you like deal with Title IX, and like what would that have looked like back then had Title IX and the those involved in it knew, if they knew about what you were up against. I just think it's fascinating, like what you're saying about an SWA and that we need to have a female voice, and then when you were a kid, they're like, yeah, no, you're not covered.
Yeah.
Because of your gender. And I just I'd love for Title IX to know about this story because we had it,
Yeah.
Does that qualify?
I'm forever grateful, right? The opportunities that Title IX have brought about. Because I talked to my mom, and you probably talked to your mom, like they didn't have the opportunities to play. Even in high school, they had no opportunities.
My mom's the biggest proponent of Title IX. It's just because exactly that, like she didn't have those opportunities. I don't know if she would have played sports, but who knows, right? Like she was cheerleader, she was athletic, but that was what you could do. And but where I'm getting at with this story about you as a little girl going to that camp, that just breaks my heart that even happened. But like, how many stories are still out there that aren't being exposed to the powers that be with Title IX? Because I know for sure we've come into a time of girls not knowing what Title IX is because they didn't have to worry about it, right? Like they have the opportunities now. We're good. We're not going to keep educating people on it. And it's imperative that we keep talking about it because of what happened to you as a little girl. So anyway,
I totally
went on
agree
a
with that.
tangent.
Yeah.
I went on a tangent, but it's just like going through my head that like, if that story had been exposed, what would have happened to that camp? So
it's so important to keep talking about it because I went to a basketball camp last year, a tournament at Virginia Beach, and they were asking little young girls if they knew what Title IX was, and none of them knew. And their mission, this is the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Their mission is really to continue that education and to talk about it. And I think that's so smart because people have to understand, like, for us to build where we want to go, we have to know where we've been, right? Totally. And to keep those conversations going.
Well, most people don't know what Title IX is. They think it's equality in sports. And that's not, it's part of it. It's a very, very small part of equality in education. And, so important to keep the conversation going. And I love, you've mentioned 2 women so far who have been mentors to you. So that's huge. Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, Heather and I, even though we grew up like in around each other, probably played softball against each other. I know I'm older. We don't need to get into it, but I'm older. And I met her in 2008, pregnant as all get out. Grace was due in 3 weeks, and I take on this job. It's the SAP Open, and it was at HP Pavilion. And I'm going to go down and stay for a week for this tournament. And my mom, she'll be listening, said, I don't think you should do it. You're too close to having Gracie. I don't think. And I'm like, no, I'm filling in for this guy. And he said, all I do is sit around and watch tennis. And then I go cut some highlights. That is not what happened. But I met Heather through all of this. I did not make it the whole week. I had to leave Friday morning at 4 a.m. from Fremont because I was in labor. But Heather witnessed me the entire week walking in circles. There's no place I've ever seen Heather that looks the exact same as HP Pavilion. I'm like, is it this door? But this door looks just the same. I don't know where our camera is. I don't know where audio is. I had a difficult camera situation with my camera person who kept forgetting things. So I did a lot of walking, and I basically walked Gracie out of my body and didn't make it the whole time. So with all that said, Heather and I bonded because I went into labor, and she's very, very sweet to me. And I don't know if the team that hired me just felt bad for me, because I did it like 4 years. I kept going back. Like, I made a statement with that one. And I probably legally, they're like, we better have her back because that's going to look bad. She had a baby, you know. But let's go back to 2008 and what that job was. You talked about Cal, and then I met you, you know, with SAP, and you were a big wig wearing suits and kind of running the show. So what was that trajectory like for you?
So that trajectory, I mean, kind of started at Cal, because part of my job there as well was managing corporate sponsorship accounts, because they were about to open Haas Pavilion when they redid Harmon. Had no idea that I would like it, right? I didn't even know what it was. So what ended up happening was when I was looking for a job, I ended up interviewing for a job at UC Davis as a director of development. I was one of final 2 candidates, really wanted it, thought I nailed the interview, but I didn't get it. And I was actually kind of upset because I always thought I wanted to come back to Davis. But as part of that, a NBC Sports Bay Area, which I think was Comcast back then,
Comcast,
put me in touch with the San Jose Sharks. And my mentor at the time, Carolyn Pendergast, is like, just go for it. I know you don't want to work in professional sports, but go interview for it. You can always say no. Or if you take it, you can just take it for 2 years and go find something else. So I went and interviewed, and it was a long process that, you know, involved meeting like a 13-person team, meeting people up and down the organization. And I just got impressed with the culture of the San Jose Sharks, and they were about to expand into other properties like the tennis tournament. So when the opportunity came along, I took it, thought I would stay there maybe 3-4 years, jump back into college athletics, because I always wanted to be an athletic director, but I ended up staying there 11 plus years because my role just kept changing. I mean, you mentioned SAP, HP. I was managing the naming rights accounts at the time, and it just opened up. I got to work on contracts, work with general counsel, you know, C-level executives with a lot of these big companies, and I learned a lot there.
Yeah, she was the boss, Celeste. The dollar sign,
capital
dollar
B,
sign, dollar sign, dollar sign. If you wanted to get an answer or get something done, you went to Heather.
Yeah, Heather, you also have your master's and your doctorate. What went into your decisions to, you know, go and get those?
So for my master's, like, I thought I had to have it to be an AD back then. So we're talking like what, late 90s. And then when I got back, so when I left, when I got back to Davis, I moved back into the Alumni Association and really started thinking about, hey, I want to be an athletic director. So if I want to be an AD, I've been out of college sports for a long time. Maybe I should go get my doctorate of education, because I love to learn.
Don't you always say that, Celeste?
Yes.
Maybe we should go get our doctorate.
Yeah.
Yes, I say it.
So I was like, you know, what's going to get me into the interview pools, right? If I end up going into wanting to be an athletic director, and I thought that would help me. Besides the fact that I really enjoyed it. I mean, I do enjoy learning.
Yeah, you're a good student.
So
how did it help you?
I think to do a dissertation from beginning to end it takes a lot of discipline to actually write it and get it done. I also think that, right, it puts you up in front of people a lot from a public speaking standpoint. So I felt like I grew like within that program, even though it was during COVID, which was kind of weird as well, because I did my dissertation online on Zoom like this.
Hey.
But it was a great experience and actually it was at University of Pacific, speaking of Stockton, but it was on their Sacramento campus.
Well, you just redeemed yourself to Stockton.
Yes.
All of Stockton listening loves you now. It's interesting because sometimes we take the path on these interviews about education and how much do you need really to work in sports. Like if you do what I do or did, right? Probably not a whole lot. It's a lot of like get in there, trial by fire, figure it out. But in positions that you're in, like what you're in, education does play a role and it sets you apart and makes you unique in that interview process. For aspiring athletic directors, do you recommend the amount of education that you've had?
I mean, I think it depends, right? It's all personal, like in regards to kind of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell folks, because I actually also teach a class at elective class at University of San Francisco. And whenever I talk to those students, and they, when I think back to the educational path I took, I probably would have went back and got my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if I got my MBA, right, maybe I don't feel like I need to go get my doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
But
how cool that you have to say Dr. Hunter.
someone calls me DH.
I love DH.
Oh, that's
Like
awesome.
designated hitter. I like it.
You are my DH. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, and a lot of people that are in your role obviously played athletics. So just being an athlete, how has that really helped you with your job?
I mean, I think it helped me from, the get-go, right? From a time management standpoint, I think being able to handle pressure. There's a lot that if you're trying to practice 20 hours a week and go to school and actually stay eligible, you really have to learn, right, how to manage things, how to prioritize certain tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what's important, right? When you go to work, is you have to be able to prioritize certain things and realize what's important and what can kind of go on the back burner. And sometimes when you hire some folks, not everybody knows how to do that. So I'm forever thankful, right, for my student athlete experience.
I'm amazed. I don't know, Amy, if this happens to you, but all the time I have a lot of athletes that contact me and they say, I don't know if I have enough experience on my resume. I don't know because I haven't had time to get a job. I haven't had time to do an internship. Like I've just been a student athlete. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people want to hire you in a heartbeat, but you really have to be able to showcase that on your resume, not just say, hey, I was an athlete, but that happens all the time.
Well, you just learned so many useful life skills from playing sports. You also learn how to work as a team, which I think that's probably what my takeaway in playing sports is you're always going to get, you're going to get the asshole on the team and you better know. Come on. And you got to know how to figure them out. And like when it's game time, right? Yeah. And how to communicate with those people. And you
That's
always
true.
had someone on your team that just caused problems, but you had to figure out how to work with them. And that is a life lesson that I've taken with me in every single job, that there is that person for sure. And the time efficiency. And I love what you said, Heather, about like prioritizing. You really do learn that as an athlete. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about Davis and this role that you have now.
Yeah.
What do you love about it? And what is the most challenging part of it?
I think being around the student athletes, we have amazing smart student athletes who are dedicated, right, not only to their sport, but to the classroom. Challenging, right, is the current landscape of college athletics. I know that you were speaking about Title IX earlier, but if athletes become employees, there's going to be a lot that's going to change, right? If the Power Fives break off into a football conference, potentially, like we've seen a little bit of alignment, but I still think that there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
The sports landscape is changing so much.
Quickly. Okay, so then let's talk about you've already mentioned a couple of women who are mentors to you. And so obviously you've had some really good experiences with women in sports. What's been the toughest part about being a female in sports? Have you had some women who have been difficult? That one on the team that I talked about. I won't say it again because my mom watches and she'll be mad that I swore, but what else are you going to call that person? I don't know. And also men. How have men been involved in your career?
So I think from right, the way I look at it is that every place you work, you have people who are really easy to work with. And then you have some people that that can be challenging, right? But you got to learn to work with them. You got to learn to kind of like, in order to have things, as you were saying earlier, right? Like I like to have things move and have things get done. So you really have to figure out, right, what's important to some folks. And what I've learned, right, in my career is that my priority is may not be somebody else's priority. So you have to learn what other people's priorities are, whether they be female or they be male. And that's how you learn to work with them, right? In order to like move a project forward. So in regards to like men, like I've had some, great male bosses that have helped me, in my career, that have given me, Chris Parker's one, right, that gave me more responsibilities. He's the reason why I was working on the SAP Open and working with that international agency out of London. So I've been lucky, Greg Elliott was the person at the Sharks who actually hired me. And he gave me that opportunity, to basically get into that role and grow into that role. So I just think that from my perspective, whether they be female or male, whenever, especially early in my career, I look to work with people who could teach me. I want to be like a learner. I want to constantly learn. I want to get better at my craft. So it's important to me to work for someone, right, who's going to basically make me better, because I'm never satisfied with where I am or kind of what I know. So I've been, lucky in that respect, that when I've chosen to take a role, right, that I've been able to have some great mentors, that have been able to help me, along in my career.
That's such an athlete too, Celeste, saying I'm never satisfied.
Exactly.
I can always get better. I can always get better.
I like what you talked about of recognizing people's priorities. And I was wondering, when I heard you talk about just finding mentors or people that can teach you, and you were so driven, you found those right mentors, but there's some people out there that don't have those mentors and they really don't have that support. So if there was a woman who wanted to go into sports, and kind of traject up your pathway to your career, what would you tell them? Like some pieces of advice, what would you say to them?
One would be work ethic's important, right? People see work ethic and in my opinion, you get rewarded for it, right? If you have good work ethic, you're going to get noticed, because there's a lot of people in the workplace that don't. I would say secondly, right, when you're looking for a job, it's as important who you work for as what you're doing. I would argue that who you're working for is more important in your first or second role than what you're actually doing. Because those folks if you have a good mentor and somebody who can bring out the best in you, or recognize, right, your strengths and your weaknesses, right, they'll be able to help you along in your career so that you get better. And I would say probably the third thing is to really look for culture, as much as it is who you work for, who your teammates are around you, is whether or not you're going to be successful in the workplace.
Great advice. Amy, you have one last question to get in there?
Well, obviously I do. I want to know like what team you're going to predict at Davis to, do really well. Like who should I be watching right now? Or this year, like this year, let me give you the whole year. Like, do we have an up and coming baseball team? Is it the volleyball team? Is it the basketball team? Like who should?
So we have a few of our sports that are doing well. Our men's and women's basketball teams they've clinched a spot in the Big West tourney, which is going to be in Henderson, Nevada. Baseball just had a big series.
I was just there.
Yeah, they just
I'm
had
there a lot.
Yeah, over BYU. And softball has a bunch of seniors on the team, and they're actually starting out their season really well. So they should have a strong season. Cross country track has been doing great. That's the thing about Davis has 25 sports, so it's hard, right, just to choose one. We just had our women's lacrosse team have a big win over Lindenwood.
Wasn't there a big upset over Stanford? Was it men's baseball?
Wasn't baseball, field hockey.
Hockey.
Yeah, beat Stanford in the fall.
Take that, Stanford. My dad went to Stanford, so it's fun for me.
I've never been to Davis, so we're going to take a field trip, Amy, and we're going to go see Heather's office while we're there.
That's kind of our
Check
MO,
out all these
Heather.
notes. We invite ourselves.
Anybody that we interview. Well, actually, no, we feel like you've invited us.
Correct.
To come see you.
So you're welcome. And I'll show you have you seen the Edwards Family Athletic Center yet?
No, I haven't been to I stopped by Davis because last year I was on the River Cats broadcast. So I would stop in Davis to get Dos Coyotes and then right back on the freeway to go over the causeway.
Well, you're welcome anytime, and I love Dos.
I'll take you to Dos. I promise. It's a date. She's an Aggie. She's so cool.
Well, thank you so much. Driven, fantastic advice. Such a role model. Dr. Hunter, thanks for being with us.
She's our DH. Heather, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Having me.
Next up, episode 15 of Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? Amy G, who's on tap?
I mean, I'm just calling all my friends.
You are.
I know this is another
going through your phone.
Heather was on, and so this next guest, I'm super excited. She's a dear friend of mine, and she's a trailblazer to boot. She's been in the headlines lately, so people have probably seen her, and she was featured on the Today Show with Hoda, and she decided Hoda could also be our friend. So Hoda, come on in. She said Hoda's cool. Jenny Kavnar is going to be joining us, and she was recently hired by the Oakland A's. She's going to be the first female primary play-by-play announcer in Major League Baseball. Go, Jenny.
That is amazing. And good on you for being her friend.
I know. Good on me. If I had known 10 years ago, right? Like, oh, yeah, my Rolodex, which is now my iPhone. But yeah, I met Jenny early in her career. She's an absolute doll and so good at what she does. Like she's just the whole package.
I can't
wait. I'm really excited to talk to her. I'm really glad you get to meet her. I'm excited.
I know.
Yeah.
I am so excited. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on all of the social platforms. Handle is @GirlGigPodcast. And you can listen to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig on your favorite podcast app or subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. For Amy G, I'm Celeste Gehring. Until next time, go get that gig.